Good evening, everybody. Here we go. I had to do everything manually. For some reason, none of the links were working, and I apologize. So we can call the meeting to order. Let me read my little intro here. How is everybody? Okay. Give me a second to get to that. Okay. Well, good evening. As Chair of the Laconia Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, which was issued pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this meeting, where all members of the board will have the ability to communicate, and the public will have access to watch the live YouTube video at youtube.com/LaconiaNH, no spaces. Listen to this meeting through the dialing the following phone number as well: 1-312-626-6799, or participate with the Zoom app. The webinar ID is 863-7162-0627. That's 863-7162-0627. And the webinar password is 300047. Providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access this meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the City of Laconia's website at laconiaNH.gov. Providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem with access, please call 524-3877, extension 249, or email at planning@laconiaNH.gov. And bear in mind, we have to adjourn the meeting if we learn during the meeting that the public is unable to access the meeting. And please note, all votes that are taken during this meeting have to be done by a roll call vote. So let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance when each member states their presence. Also, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Ready? Bruce Cheney,
Here at City Hall.
Charlie Sinclair,
Here, likewise.
Mike Delavecchia,
Present.
Sarah Jenna,
Present. Oh, and I am at home. I do have my husband in the room.
okay. Kirk Beatty,
Remote and alone.
Jewel Fox,
Remote and alone.
Edwin Bones,
Present, wife's in the room.
Stacy Susie,
Remote and alone.
and Peter Burnett.
Remote and alone. Thank you very much. We have Kalina Graham and Dean Trefethen, the planning director, and assistant planner Rob Mora will also be in attendance at tonight's meeting. Again, I'm sorry that we got in a bit of a late start, but it was an elusive email. Anyway, have you all had a chance to take a look at the minutes from the December 1st meeting? Does anyone have any additions or wish to make any changes? Sensing not, then I guess we can declare the meeting minutes from the December 1st meeting accepted and made part of the record. Let's see here. We're starting out with presentations, updates to the Wetlands Conservation and Water Quality Overlay District pursuant to 235-17, and the Shoreland Protection District, which is 235-19. And Ashley Rupert, the conservation tech, is she present?
Present.
Okay, well, I'll turn it over to you then. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Hang on one second. Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Ruprecht, the Conservation Planner Technician, and tonight I'm going to provide an overview of the proposed amendments to the WC and SP districts. And with that also includes the definitions portion as well, so 235.13. The goal in these amendments was to clarify the intent of the existing ordinances to make it easier to comprehend for residents and to add some missing pieces, as well as protecting natural resources. What you should have in front of you is a copy of the amendments. These are just a summary of the amendments and not the entire ordinance, because that is many pages and you'd probably lose track of where exactly I'm talking about. So just keep that in mind as I go through this. There's much more language that exists to this ordinance that will not be touched as part of these amendments. The regular font is shown as existing text. It will not be changed. Bold are proposed changes, and a strike through is proposing to remove some existing language. And just for a little background, I've been working on this for several months. My first draft was actually back in August. It's gone through several rounds of internal vetting and through Conservation Commission, several meetings through Conservation Commission, and they did vote to support these proposed changes at their last meeting, which was December 16th. And I do have Chair of the Conservation Commission, Dean Anson, has joined us as well tonight. So if you guys have any questions for him or for me, please feel free to ask. So moving right along, the first section is the definitions. So these were terms that many of these were already existing terms referenced in the ordinance. So impervious surface, intermittent and perennial streams were already terms that were existing in the ordinance, but they weren't defined. So I wanted to define those. Those are using state definitions, and the reference line definition for water bodies has been updated as well to match the definition of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I also defined certified wetland scientist because we did have certified soil scientists, but when we're talking about delineation of wetlands, we really want to clarify that a certified wetland scientist should be doing that work and should be stamping those plans. So under 235.17, the WC overlay district, in section C, we're just proposing to add that we are proposing exemptions, and I'll get more to that in a little bit about what those exemptions are. And section C3 was changed. Currently, it says that a certified soil scientist should be delineating wetlands, which is not the case. It should be done by a certified wetland scientist by the state. So 235.17D, this is a new section D from what is currently existing. The first part of this says that the city of Laconia may require an applicant to provide a professional wetland determination and delineation using methodology adopted by DES. Part 2 is that wetland should be clearly marked in the field, because what good is a delineation if we don't know where the wetland is when the work is proposing to be done. Typically that's done with pink or blue flagging, but as long as we are clear that that is a wetland and should be avoided and it has a buffer, then that is okay. And then section 3 is some guidance for if there's a wetland boundary dispute. Currently, we don't have anything that guides us in terms of how to manage that if there is some sort of dispute between, say, the city or two residents or abutters about a delineation being incorrect. But this would provide a tool where we could require that certified wetland scientist or additional studies are done at the expense of the landowner or developer. And that information would be provided in writing to the planning board and also provided to Conservation Commission for review and comment on its reclassification. This is standard language that I've seen in many other municipalities as well when reviewing their ordinances. So 235-17E. This section E is now combining existing D and E. So currently the ordinance separates wetlands and vernal pools from water bodies when really that both sections state the same thing, that they need to be retained and maintained in their natural condition. So rather than having it in two places and having it be confusing, I am proposing to change it and make it all in one section. So it's easy to find, easy to reference. I'm not changing the language for what those buffers are. It'll remain the 50 foot from a wetland, except for if it's exempt, which again, we'll get to. And so yeah, none of those feet requirements for the buffers are actually being proposed to change. It's just more of a cleanup of the way it's organized currently. So this is the exemption section that I'm proposing. It's 235-17E3. So section A would be that wetlands less than 3,000 square feet in their entirety, unless contiguous to a river, brook, lake, or pond, would be exempt. This doesn't prevent the applicant from needing to get a delineation done. And this doesn't mean that it's confined to their property boundary. It's the wetland system as a whole. 3,000 square feet is a little bit larger than a tennis court. And currently, the city's ordinance has no sort of exemption or pathway. A wetland is a wetland, no matter what size. So this just offers some sort of pathway if they need to prove, the burden of proof is on the applicant, and if they do choose to go with this exemption. Section B is for man-made wetlands, so detention ponds, fire ponds, roadside drainage ditches. An example you can see is on the image on the right-hand side. This was a man-made swale that had a little bit of crushed stone in it, and because it wasn't maintained over time, it grew some sensitive fern, which is hydric vegetation, and is now considered a wetland. DES does not include man-made maintenance of man-made structures to be permitted, as long as it was approved. But the city, again, we don't have any sort of clarification on that currently. So a wetland's a wetland, whether it was man-made or not. And this is a buffer table that does not exist currently. Again, the buffers, the setbacks are not being proposed to change at all. The only addition here would be showing that if the wetland is classified as exempt, that it would not be applicable in terms of a buffer setback. Under 235-17 F for permitted uses, the only change here was the addition of stumps need to remain in place but can be ground down to existing grade. This is for prevention of erosion, because when you pull the stump, it can lead to erosion issues. Under 235-17G, there were 4 additional prohibited uses that were added. This is based on some activities that we've seen that have been troublesome around the city at various different times. The first, it's a little odd that it's 33 feet, but portable toilets must be at least 33 feet from wetlands and water bodies. That measurement comes from DES, and that's their regulation for surface waters. They don't regulate that for wetlands, but we are proposing this as well for the shoreline protection, just to be safe, because potential contamination hazard, as well as these other things, the newly established, except for newly established expanded area, the compaction of soils for parking or storage of vehicles or equipment, storage of fill construction materials and dumping of C and D debris. So currently with some of these things, we have nothing that we can do other than to ask DES to alert them that something's going on, and we have to wait idly by until something happens. And it's really frustrating when there's one person for an entire region and things move slowly. So by proposing these to be included under prohibited uses, hopefully it will give us a little more leeway for taking some action faster. Under section H, just a little rework of the language that's existing to make it a little more clear that we also want to include the placement of impervious surfaces should not be allowed within the wetland buffer. And that should require a conditional use permit. So now we're at the Shoreline Protection District. The first suggested change was to clarify that rather than having the southeasterly border be at Messer Street Bridge, it will be the boundary of the urban commercial district. So this would remove 3 properties there. You can see in the image on the left. And those properties are heavily impacted already. There's really not much environmentally intact area left. And under prohibited uses, again, you'll see the portable toilet and the dumping of construction and demolition debris. Under 235-19F, I'm proposing to change the wording from vegetative buffer requirements to waterfront buffer. This is consistent with DES as well, and many other municipalities do it this way. I think it's also a better representation of what that area is. While yes, the goal is to have as much vegetation there and to keep it intact. I mean, a lot of properties are developed along that water, so it's more representative to say waterfront, and it's the first 50 feet from the reference line. So it's not changing, it's just changing the name of what it's called. So we are proposing to remove under 235-19FC2. This wording here is not, the city can only be more restrictive than the state, and that wording is less restrictive because it's saying that trees can be removed if it's less than 4 inches in diameter, measured at 4.5 feet in height. And that's not what the state requires. The state has a point system. You can see on the images at the bottom that trees with that diameter at 4.5 feet in height could have a point system or point worth of 5 or 1 points. And so we do not want to let people remove vegetation, and they should be considering what is existing. And again, grinding down stumps to existing topographical grade should be allowed, but stumps should not be removed. Under 235-19F2, we go into the development standards. So the first part in B, this wording was pretty confusing. It's basically saying, yes, you can disturb the vegetative buffer, or no, you cannot disturb the vegetative buffer. And then yes, you can, as long as you revegetate. So it was confusing. We just want to keep it plain and simple. No, or new primary structures and additions to existing structures need to be set back at least 50 feet from the reference line. G is an addition. This is saying that impervious structures and surfaces must be set back again 50 feet from the reference line. And this is including but not limited to patios, fire pits, sheds, retaining walls 4 feet and higher, because that's also a structure, unless they are designed to be pervious. And again, that burden of proof of whether it's pervious needs to be provided by the applicant. And we do have this as a condition in our NOAs a lot of the time. I'm sure we have it a lot of other places as well, but any and all work must be conducted in compliance with local, state, and federal regulations. And that is it. Does
That
anyone
is
have any questions?
And that is an excellent job, Ashley. Thank you very much. Do any members of the board have
Thank
questions?
you.
Any members of the board?
Ashley, Ed Bonas speaking.
Hey, Ed.
I think it was 235-17-5. Discuss parking. Is that correct?
$235. 17, you're talking about the compaction of soils for the storage of vehicles?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if I own a lot and I have a waterfront lot, I want to park boats.
Mhm.
That's prohibited.
No, this is, that is in reference to the wetland buffer.
Okay. Just a buffer.
Yep, wetland, not shoreland. So not the
Okay.
large water bodies,
hmm
we're talking about wetlands.
Okay. And then 235-19-F1.
They would totally up. They'd probably be back. They're probably like checking you out, seeing what they can get away
Yep.
with. And then they may even go with it or not.
Want to reread that one for me?
Excuse me, is there someone needs to mute their mic? I believe there's someone talking in the background. Thank you.
Yep, so that was the minimum requirements within the specified areas of the Shoreline Protection District. So that section, really it's just reworking that I'm proposing and changing the name of the district or the buffer, from vegetative to waterfront,
Okay.
to make it more consistent with DES and what other municipalities are doing. That way they know when you say waterfront that it's at first 0 to 50 feet from the lake.
Okay. And then I had 19F2, and I think G.
Yes.
And
Do you have
that
a
was,
specific question on it?
yeah, go through it again for me real quick.
Right, so impervious structures or surfaces must be set back at least 50 feet from the reference line. So this is for new or changes to existing, not for already grandfathered in areas. So if it's a patio, fire pit, shed, or retaining wall, if it's a structure, it needs to be designed to be pervious if it's new, or if there's going to be a change to something that's existing. Say you have a shed and that's been grandfathered in, that's been there for decades, but if you want to expand that impervious surface and you're going to create more runoff.
And then finishing his transaction.
Okay. So if I'm building a fire pit by the water, because that's where everybody builds their fire pit, that's prohibited.
Just slammed it shut and left it out.
Yes, if it's not designed to be pervious, like if it's a concrete fire pit where
then
the
it's
water
prohibited.
can't permeate into the ground.
Yeah.
Wait, you're full of money.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if I, Peter,
Sure.
sorry, but
No,
if
go
I may
ahead.
add in there, some of these things that we're proposing for language are things that we've been enforcing for a while. And, Ashley's done a great job of really digging into the ordinance and saying, we're enforcing this, but we don't really have anything that explicitly says that. So it's more of a administrative decision type thing or administrative interpretation. And it would always be best to have it in black and white so that if we're enforcing something that we can point to an ordinance and say, there it is right there. And as you know, because you've seen particularly recently, a couple of requests for conditional use permits for people to have fire pits or whatever in the buffer zone. And there's a process to go through that. But again, we wanted to make sure that we had the language to back all that up.
Thanks, Dean. And I'm sure many fire pits are pervious, but I think we want to not just assume this moving forward. And if someone says, oh, I'm building a fire pit, and then they go out and they build this ridiculous like concrete pit, and it takes away the guessing game of it all. And we want proof that, okay, you're saying it's pervious. Show us. Because people notice and people see what their neighbors do, and then they think that that's okay.
I never look at my neighbors.
Peter,
Actually, my
from
neighbors are all being demolished as we speak. So, any other questions for Ashley or for Dean about this?
Peter?
Sounds like you put a lot of work into it. Yes, Dean? Is that Dean?
Oh. No, it was Bruce.
Oh, hi, Bruce.
Could I ask you a question about G4 and then under 23519D20, both of which refer to during construction, it's a temporary location, et cetera. What happens if someone puts one in permanently, not for construction purposes?
Oh, for the portable toilets.
Yes.
So as long as it's 33 feet away with wetland as well, wetland's a 50-foot buffer, or, well, it really depends on the setback too for wetland, because some of the designated streams are 75 feet. But permanent, if it's a permanent structure and it's within the buffer, it would need a conditional use permit. So it would go through the same process and the same vetting.
And you don't think that the reference to only construction of project might lead someone to believe that it's different for one that's put for a purpose other than a construction project?
That's a good point. I do think that if it was a permanent structure, though, that was a permanent toilet, then it would be a structure and it would need to go through the same route for approvals.
Well, I'm aware of some porta potties that are placed in non-construction areas. Excuse me, one that comes to mind is behind City Hall. And I guess my question becomes, is that one okay? Because it's not a construction site.
That one is 33 feet from the water, I believe. I haven't measured it myself. But I understand what you're saying. Dean, do you have anything to comment on this?
It's a good point, Bruce. I don't think we really had thought about that potential aspect. A lot of them would be part of some type of a site plan or a building permit process, and we would be looking at the ordinance, but that's a good point. We might want to look at that.
I think if you delete the part about construction, you solve that problem. But I guess what concerns me is someone looking at it, could say to themselves at least, oh, well, this isn't out back here. That's not for construction purposes.
Right.
So I don't want people to be confused, I guess, is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's a good point too. Now that I'm thinking, like, if people rent them for college graduation parties or some people have backyard weddings or whatever it is.
Yep.
Well, there are boat facilities in the Lakes region that have porta potties pretty much all season long.
Yep.
So, and again, I would agree that you'd need if it was a permanent structure, if it was intended to be there in that spot all the time, then you would need a CUP, wouldn't you? I mean, a structure is a structure, whether it's temporary or not. There's no difference.
Yeah, probably, the answer is probably.
Right? The answer is probably. It's always
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very minor little change. We can take a look at that. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments by members of the board? All right. Well, again, thank you for the presentation. You're looking for some action by the board tonight, Dean?
Yes, we are. We would like you to refer this to a public hearing at the next meeting. And then we will post it and go through all the notices that we need to do. And another opportunity at that meeting for board members to ask questions if any additional questions come up.
All right. We need do we need a motion to schedule, or can we just schedule it?
You
Public
need a
hearing.
motion. You need a motion to do that. Yes.
Okay. So would someone care to make such a motion? Merely that this be scheduled for consideration and public hearing on our next meeting, which is February what?
Second.
2nd. Groundhog Day. Anybody?
Hey, Dean, Ed Bonas, I'd make a motion that we place the wetland changes on the February 2nd planning meeting agenda.
Motion by the vice chair. Is there a
Public
second?
hearing.
I'll second it. Bruce Cheney.
Second. Motion for and seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, Ms. Graham, may we have a roll call, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchia,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Jewel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, again, thank you very much. All right, continued public hearings. I see item 8.1, the Tower Hill Tavern, the applicant has requested a continuance to March 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes, he has. We have talked with the applicant a couple of times. He is not quite ready. I have also talked with the sound engineer consultant, and as you might expect, he is straight out and has had a scheduling issue of trying to get up there and see what needs to be done. And therefore, we don't have any recommendations from the sound engineer yet. So we're fully on board with delaying this to the March meeting.
Refresh my memory, is the sound measurement pursuant to the original conditional use permit? Or some other measure?
No, the sound measurement or issue, however you want to look at it, is something that was brought up by abutters during this process. The original approval several years ago was a time restraint for the upstairs area to stop playing music at 10 o'clock on the weekends and 9 on weekdays. The request is to go to 1 o'clock every day. So that's the actual request, but that of course has brought out these other issues from the abutters concerning noise.
The standard, if I recall, was something like discernible at such and such a distance, or which is subjective as all hell. So
Yeah, I forget the exact wording, but yes, it is a kind of a subjective definition of what's supposed to be met. So I think we need to come up with something that is measurable and is not subjective.
And I'd be interested to know what as we go forward with this application, and he's working with us, which is good. In the enforcement piece that this case brings up is the only method of enforcing our conditional use permits complaints
That's
from
one of the
butters.
that's one of the things that I have had an opportunity to talk with the sound engineer about. We did have a couple of phone conversations, and one of the things that we talked about was there are monitoring systems that are in use for indoor and outdoor type situations that we could prescribe a certain level of sound, and then if it exceeds that level of sound, on some consistent basis, it's not just a 1 second spike, but rather over the course of 30 or 45 seconds, whatever we determine to be the threshold that the level of sound exceeds the level for a somewhat of a sustained period of time, then there's some form of reporting, and that's part of the issue that we're going to have to work out. But so those systems are available. I have no idea what they cost. I haven't got that far, but they are available, and they might be. They certainly would not be subjective. We could set it at a certain level, and then that would be the measurement would be the measurement.
Dean, are those systems that the city would purchase and then send someone out there to sit there and monitor the noise level?
I think it would be more that the applicant, the owner, would have to purchase them.
And then turn over his readings every week?
Yeah, or the readings usually are, through some type, through the internet, and could be reported to whoever we decide to report them to. We want them to report something immediately to someone who is in the position to do something about it. So whether it's the restaurant manager or the bar manager or whoever that's on premise, that they would get the notification and they would have to do something about it. But we would also get notification, and part of that notification would be that it would also show us that within a reasonable amount of time, action was taken to reduce the level. If it went on for 2 or 3 hours and nothing was done, then that's a different story than, okay, it went on for 5 minutes and then it got reduced and everything was okay after that.
So if we require him to install something like that, are we now going to require every business that makes noise to install the same system? Because it seems to me that, we're going to just single this guy out. There are multiple bars down in the Weirs, and there's some in town. So the requirement, if you're going to force one guy to do it, seems to me you got to make them all do it.
Well, and then there's the cause and effect. You could have a decibel level, but you can't tell from the decibel level what the source of the sound is. So it on a busy Saturday night in the summer, it might be hard to tell where all the sound is coming from, but it could be coming from a number of businesses in the area, idling buses, all kinds of noise and stuff. So it's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. To partially answer your question, Edward, in this case, I feel very comfortable if we were to recommend that system or some type of a system like that, because it's the applicant asking for a change in his approval that is triggering this. The other people that you're talking about are in existence, and most of them do not have time limitations on their site plan approvals or their hours of operation. So, I don't want to use the word grandfathered because that's so passé, but I forget what the new term is that is politically correct for grandfathered. But anyway, they would be grandfathered, and I don't think we could do anything retroactively. Now, if some other establishment came in to do some type of a change, put on an addition or whatever, then, that's potentially a different story. If the abutters come out and say, hey, we got a problem, which is which is, essentially is what happened here.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to ask a question
sure.
or make a comment, a statement. If I didn't like the particular owner of a business, whether it's a bar or a lounge, and obviously this will be a public hearing, and so if the city requires this particular business to get this sound system or a sound detector, and if I wanted to mess with these people, and I think Dean had said that not a second spike, but maybe a 45-second burst or a minute burst, all I got to do is sit outside that business with a very loud sound system from my car, and I can just wreak havoc. And I've been inside businesses before, not to mention my house, and I'm sure we've been right here in City Hall when there's been noise outside from a sound system in a car. So I'm not saying this is a bad idea, Dean. I'm just saying that, and I think that Ed brought up some good points there, but this is something that's really going to have to be looked at very hard as being the catch-all for saying, oh, this person's doing business, because like Peter said about idling buses, well, I'm thinking about these cars, and I know Councilor Cheney's aware of it because this has been an ongoing situation with cars for a long, long time. Or and not even motorcycles or exhaust. I'm talking about the sound systems where you can hear the music,
Right. You can
or
feel
the
the
bass.
bass.
Yeah, it'll shake your windows in your house. And if they just
Good
sit
point.
there for a minute or a minute and a half, or God forbid, 2 minutes, they're going to raise a lot of heck with that system, and nobody's going to be the wiser. That's all. That's the only statement I wanted to make on that. Thank you.
Mr. Bone, Mr. Vice Chair, sir, would you take the gavel for just a few minutes so that I could take a
Sure.
Those are good points, Charlie, and I'm not disagreeing. There are systems that you could be inside the building, and I think that that might be a better solution. And you set it at a level inside the building so that when you get to the property line, or whatever place that you want to measure the noise outside, that if it's 110 decibels inside, then it won't exceed 50 decibels at the property line or something along those lines. And that's if we decide we want to go this route, that's where the sound engineer, I believe, is going to come in. He gave me the example of an outdoor one, but he also said that there were ones that were very good for indoor as well. The one that he gave to me as an example was at Prescott Park in Portsmouth, where they have plays and concerts and stuff in the park at night. There's people who do live in the area and occasionally complain about the level of noise. So they have one of these monitoring systems mounted somewhere in the park, so that if it gets to a certain level, the organizers of the event are notified that they got to turn the sound system down a little bit. So that, it may, but in some cases, we are dealing with an outside stage potentially, and an outside monitor might be what's needed. But I'm kind of, and again, I think we're early in the process, but I'm leaning towards probably having something inside the building for some of the reasons that you just stated, that is set at a level that we're going to have to do a series of tests, but set at a level so that once you get to the property line, the noise level is dissipated enough that it's not, earth-shattering.
Well, if as a former business owner and having the same sound problems in one of the buildings at the Weirs, I think if I had a sound system inside that I could point to the people making the music and say, look, see, So that could work
Yep.
if it works like that.
And that's a big if.
Is there, so I'm assuming the city already has an ordinance with a required decibel amount already in place? No.
Do not.
So who's going to determine what that decibel should be?
Well, I think in this particular case, I think it's a matter of what level of noise can exist inside the building that dissipates to a low enough level by the time you get to the property line that it's not disturbing your neighbors. And I think that's.
But isn't that also subjective on the neighbor? Which neighbor feels they're being?
Well, I mean, there are some standards out there. Certain decibel levels are equated to, certain sounds that people are familiar with, so that people can make a correlation, for instance. And I don't know the exact decibel levels off the top of my head, but you could look at one of these charts and it'll say 50 decibels is, two people talking normally at 5 feet away or something like that. And then 60 decibels is something else, and those kind of things. And we all know that when it's 11 o'clock at night, it's different than it is at 11 o'clock in the morning. But I don't know that 11 o'clock in the morning is the issue here at all. So it's what's happening in the nighttime hours. And there is obviously an ambient level, particularly at the weirs in the summer, that needs to be taken into consideration. So, I mean, there's a lot of work here to be done, I think, to figure out how you approach this, how you measure it, what are the appropriate levels, and then who gets notified and when they get notified type thing. So I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, and I think my only concern is I'm trying to be realistic, and we've got to have a way that's not going to be unfair to the applicant, because at this point we're dealing with one, and I don't know how much you can keep burdening somebody with, we want more and more and more. That's my only concern.
Well, it's very much like aesthetic considerations. It's often in the ear of the beholder, so to speak. So, it's a good point. Any other comments on this? I'm back, by the way. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Counselor.
There was a noise ordinance here in the city. There is also state statutes which talk about disorderly conduct and a lot of things you could put noise under. The problem I see and saw for years is there's a subjective standard that we ask these police officers to exercise. And I think this would be fairer to everybody if it's done properly and not put us in a position of having to deal with subjective standards. I'd also say that although I don't want to be unfair to the applicant, you also don't want to be unfair to the neighbors who, for whatever reason, think they've been unfairly treated up to this point, and have certainly pushed this issue to the city. So I guess my point is there's two sides to this story, and I think putting a standard in using a mechanical measurement would be a lot more fair to both sides than going without it and having the police have to deal with it on a weekend or by weekend basis. Thank you.
Well, as with anything else, there is always the subjective factor. So, all right. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed. Chief.
I guess I'll throw this towards Dean. I will make the comment that, my office has been working with Anthony quite a bit, and we've been seeing a lot of progress. So that I'll say that as a positive. My question, though, is to Dean, do you think that in March, if you've been talking to the sound engineer or anything, that we will have some stuff that we can actually maybe vote on and make it, something solid, because what I'm afraid of, I don't want to be doing this in May and June. You know, it's not fair to the applicant, to us, to anybody, to the council. If they, you know, if they get involved, that's a tough time to be trying to do this type of stuff. So, you know, not an exact answer, Dean, but do you think ballpark, we may actually have something in 2 months from now?
That would be my hope. In my shorter conversations with the sound engineer, we're on his list, so therefore we're in his queue, and so he's going to get to us, and the indication is he's going to get to us soon in the new year. So hopefully that we would have an answer and a plan by the March meeting. That would be my hope. Yes.
It's kind of what the government's saying about the vaccine.
Don't get me started.
Okay. All right. Any other comments germane to this issue? It's a mixed use neighborhood. It's always going to be difficult. Everybody has to give a little bit, and not everybody gets to take everything that they want. And it's been that way for over 100 years in the Weirs. It was a religious campgrounds and veterans campgrounds, and then the hotels came with the railroad and changed everything. And we're still trying to figure out how to mix all those uses together based on the existing architecture, lots of which would not be buildable under current standards. They're just too close, too small, you know. All right. Any other comments or questions before we move on? All right. Well, thank you very much. We are doing a
Yeah,
public hearing.
Mr. Chair, you need
Yes.
to
we
do
need
a
a vote.
motion. Yes, you need to
Yes.
do a motion to delay to March 2nd.
Would someone care to make a motion that this matter be continued?
Ed
I'll make
Bonas,
a
I'd make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kurt.
No, that's fine. I'll make the motion to request aiming to accept the extension for Lakeside to the March meeting.
March 2nd, 2021?
Sounds good.
Okay, is there a second to the chief's
Ed
motion?
Bonas, a second now.
Seconded by the vice chair. Any discussion? Sensing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchio.
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Biatti,
Yes.
Joel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
and Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on, 9.1 is PL 2020-0066 SU and 0067 CUP and 0068 CUP. It's a cluster in a wetland. Mile Hill Road, it's called Mountain Lake Village. It's a proposal for a 51 lot cluster subdivision with underground utilities and sidewalk. 18 of those units are located in Belmont, 33 in Laconia. And if I'm not mistaken, the Belmont application has been continued, the approval has been continued, so they need to come back to Laconia because the Laconia one lapsed, if I'm not mistaken. We accepted it at the last meeting on December 1st. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Phil Brouillard for Mountain Lake Village, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Attorney Brouillard. How are you?
Good evening. Fine, thank you. Happy New Year to all.
Well, thanks a lot.
Well, I was trying to figure out a way to get everybody to be able to see this subdivision and how nice it is. And so I had a drone fly it along the roads of the plans. So we thought we'd change things up a little bit. And before I start talking, after you've had a little bit of dryness here, we'll get you up in the air, and I'm going to let Rob take it away.
I might need Dramamine.
No, well, maybe.
Rob, you're going to make this happen?
So I'm going to attempt to play a drone flyover of it. Unfortunately, there's no theme music to it, so just have to imagine that there's theme music.
I
Yeah,
have
it's
a
not.
kazoo here somewhere. Maybe Phil could sing.
Oh, I don't think you want that, Pete. You're the singer.
Ooh,
That's the entrance.
looks like that meteorite crater in Siberia. Oh, here we go. What are we looking at, Attorney Brouillard?
Looking at the entrance road off of Mile Hill Road.
Okay.
That's the entrance. That's the entrance road. You see Mile Hill Road in the up at the bottom. That road was part of the entry road.
Okay,
This is the entry onto Mile Hill Road.
and to the far left, that was the bypass, right?
That is correct.
These are the existing units.
These are existing homes on Mile Hill Road. Yes. That's the entrance road. It'll be a nicely landscaped road all the way up. We just wanted to get the board out there somehow. So this is what we figured out to try. We will be flying lower so that the board can actually see the lots. I have had the Brontosaurus mower out there, and I've cut the roadways, mowed it. So that's where the roads are going. That's the first loop. There's 22 lots on the first loop. It runs from in front of Provincial Road down to the entrance that you just went on. And you can see the land and you can see where the road is going. There's 8 lots in Belmont along this road. And then there's 12 lots in Laconia along this road. So on the first loop road, there's 20 lots. And then when he makes the turn here, you're going to be looking out at Provincial Road and the Apple Ridge, the new apartments on Provincial Road.
Would you call that brush cutter?
It's what they call a Brontosaurus mower. It goes on the head of an excavator, and it's a hydraulically a big spindle that spins at a very high rate of speed that has blades on it that more or less pulverizes everything in its path.
Ooh.
And that's the new entrance to Provincial Road. And so now he's going to turn around now. Oh,
Nice view.
yeah. Does
Well,
have a
that
nice
was
view.
unique. So thank you for doing that, Attorney Brouillard. That was nice. Oh,
There's
we're back.
yes, it's called Mountain Lake Village because you can see the mountain and the lakes from there. I think there's a little more frontage here. This is the road that goes up along the side of the bypass, and then there's another road that goes up straight so that it goes up a hill. So it's actually now we're coming back along that loop back, the 20 lot loop, and we're going to be taking a left here to go into more of the subdivision. And this road has about 30 lots, about 20 lots on it. And then we cross the power line here. We're going to come up to the public service power line when he goes down the road. And you can see how nice it is up there. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
It's Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a big gulch. There's a big gulch in there. That's part of the conservation land. This parcel was 107 acres, and I gave 49 of it to the Town of Belmont Conservation Commission because I offered it to the city first, but they didn't want it. But basically, every lot in this subdivision is going to back up to conservation land. And out of the entirety of the 107 acres, only about 30 acres has houses on it and roads and things like that. And this was originally, I actually looked at the deed here, and this is the power line. And then there used to be two roads. The lower road is gone. Basically what happened is the ordinance changed in Laconia, and I used to have 77 lots, but in Laconia I lost 26 lots. This is the end of the cul-de-sac near the bypass where it's going to turn around. When you see the plan that Rob's going to put up, you'll see that. But there's a pumping station, a sewer pumping station, and a cul-de-sac along there. And that main road is got about 20 lots on it. And there's a cul-de-sac that goes up the hill, and that cul-de-sac has 10 lots on it. That's in Belmont.
Is that a brook or a stream we just went by?
No, there's no
No,
brooks,
okay.
no brooks or streams out there. There is the power line though, of course. And then that's the road that goes up. This is the road that goes up that has the 10 lots on it. This is actually goes up high on a hill. It's actually higher than the top of the Belknap Mall. It looks over the Belknap Mall, right down Lake Winnisquam. There's some really stunning views up there.
What would you say the elevation is at this point relative to the bypass?
Oh, I'd say it's probably plus 500.
It's pretty steep slope there.
No, well, yeah, but you gotta, it slopes up from the bypass, Pete. So actually the road is not,
I understand.
the road meets code, but you're up on a higher plate. The actual 26 lots that we lost were along the bypass. So actually that's all going to stay in its natural condition. So you won't even really see these houses from the bypass, and there'll be a big protective buffer all around everything here. And like I said, every single lot backs up to conservation land. So I think, Rob, that's pretty much it. I don't know if we could put our plans up now. Anyway, thank you for indulging me in that. I just wanted to get you out there because I actually looked at one of the deeds, and I actually closed on one of these parcels on January 5th, 2001. So it's been 20 years I've been working on this, and I did get it approved once for 77 lots, and then the economy caved. And then I had it approved, and I kept extending it, and the city was gracious for a while, but then after a while they changed the ordinance, and they said that I had to comply with the new ordinance, which it only allows me 33 lots. So what we've got is a total of 51 lots, 18 in Belmont that's already been approved, and then 33 in Laconia. And what we're here for tonight is to have a public hearing and answer any questions the board or anyone else may have. And then we still need to go to TRC and satisfy some more criteria with the various departments before we come to you for a final approval. But we thought we would get this portion of it taken care of this evening. So what we'll be looking for is a vote to continue it for further discussion and or approval on the February 2nd meeting. I have my little tablet here, Rob, and it doesn't show the whole plan. You don't? Okay. All right. Well,
I could share my screen. I just jumped in, John Roque.
Yes.
I could share my screen with the overall plan if Rob would.
Why don't we do that, John, if we could?
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can get the right thing up here first before I share screen.
Phil, are you asking for a continuance to the February meeting?
No. I want to conclude the public hearing if we could have it, Mr. Chairman, and then
Okay.
And then I just want you to know we're not ready for a vote to approve it. I just want to be right up front with that immediately. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, does everybody see that?
No. I see John Rookie has started screen sharing. Ah,
Yes, he's got magical powers. That's why I hire him as an engineer.
I
Yeah.
was wondering about
Magical
his
powers.
magical powers.
So that this gives you the overall of the entire subdivision and kind of how the roadway networks work and stuff like that. Like this was the loop that we were looking at with the drone flight up through here. The Apple Ridge apartments are right down over here. This was the hill that goes up over the top. And
Right.
I looked up the elevations from the interstate or from the bypass right here to like the cul-de-sac. It's right at about 100 feet higher. It's not 500 feet. So it isn't a dramatic change, but it's significantly higher. But yeah, all the different portions of the development drain into detention ponds. We're not pushing drainage like all over the place. Everything kind of gets treated and detained and released in the areas where it's going anyway. So I guess
Yes, and we're
Go ahead.
getting an alteration of terrain permit
Yep.
for those, and we just dug those test pits, and we're also having a third-party review done of some of the engineering for the DPW wanted done too, and those items aren't ready yet, so that's why we're just having the public hearing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Well, if I'm reading my contours correctly, it looks like it's on a ridge of some sort.
Yep. Yeah, you have
Um,
your wetland areas that run down like right here, and then there's another wetland that runs down here, and this whole thing is kind of up on top of a hill with
Yeah.
steep drop-offs. But if you look, the lots are generally away from where the drop-offs are, so people won't be, they won't be living right next to the drop-off with any of where their houses are. Some of them in this area might get a couple walkout areas, but and some along here might be walkouts, but not necessarily next to a steep slope. So,
right.
and most of our drainage, I think right in here, this is all in Belmont, but this is the detention pond that's like closest to a wetland. All the other ones are out and away from most features. So,
And we already received our omnibus wetland permit. It had to do with the Provincial Park Apartments, and it involved me deeding that 47 acres to the town of Belmont. So all the wetlands permits are in place and active.
yep.
Excellent.
Yep. And I don't know if you got into this, but it's all municipal water and municipal sewer on this site. We're gonna have curb and gutter most places. We got sidewalks. It's all kind of a closed drainage system.
There's an existing pump station there, isn't there?
There's not an existing pump station, but
We're building one, yeah.
we're
Building one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And basically what it is the pump station is down over in this area.
Yep.
And it pumps down along the road back up to about right here. And then it just gravities from here back out to Mile Hill Road.
Gotcha.
And the first phase that we're going to build is that loop there, that 20 lot loop I told you about.
Yep.
That's where we're going to get started, and that way we'll have gravity for that. And then the water comes from right in front of Provincial Road. My water hookup is right there.
Yep.
So we're going to have nice Briarcrest pressure water. And we're also going to have natural gas too.
All right. Are there any questions for the applicant from members of the board? Sensing none, we can open the public hearing then, I suppose. What time is it?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Can I ask?
Oh, sure, Stacy. Go ahead.
Are these still single family homes?
They are all single family homes, ma'am. Yes.
Oh, okay. And I was at the Conservation Commission meeting when this was presented, and part of my notes said sidewalk plowing was an issue. Is that who would be maintaining the sidewalks?
Well, the ordinance calls for sidewalks. The planning department wants sidewalks. I want sidewalks because people in this community, I want them to get out and be able to walk. And, the DPW director says that at the present time, he can't really plow the sidewalks. So I guess there's an association, a homeowners association, Stacy, that's going to pay to plow the roads and, you know, provide liability insurance and everything till the city takes over the road. But frankly, this takes quite a while. It takes, you know, 5 to 10 years for the roads to be all accepted and for the city and such to take over. It's not an overnight process. So what I'm hoping is that when the time comes, you know, the city will be ready to, you know, plow the sidewalks when they enter into their intermunicipal agreement with the town of Belmont. And I think what's happening is mostly it seems that the city of Laconia is probably going to do most of the plowing, and then Belmont's going to do something that's on their route and compensate Laconia by plowing some roads that are on their route in Laconia. So, but to answer your question, it's not going to be a problem in terms of when they're constructed, they'll be maintained. But eventually, when the city takes over the road and the town of Belmont takes over the road, you know, it's going to be a municipal function.
Got okay.
That answer your question?
Yes, it did. I didn't realize there was going to be an association in there.
Yeah.
And yes,
That's a good question, though.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to follow up if I could.
Certainly,
This is
Mr.
Charlie.
St. Clair.
Thank you. So Phil, you have to forgive you'll have to forgive the fact that I'm a little slow on this. So you guys are going to build the roads and the city will eventually take over the maintenance of the roads, and that includes the asphalt, and if they start to break down?
They're going to be, that's why you build roads to town standards. Yes.
I understand that.
All right. But this takes time, Charlie. In other words, the last time I did this in Belmont, I think it was 7 years before we turned it over to the town.
So that's what my question, I guess, is until that happens, you personally or your company will be responsible for maintaining those roads, the upkeep of those, and not an association or property owners or something like that?
No, there is an association of property owners, and they're going to pay dues, and their dues are going to pay to plow the road and salt and sand the road and maintain everything until the city takes it over.
Okay, so that you'll have to, again, I know it's different people, but as we know, there've been some other areas in the city where things haven't worked out like the property owners thought they would. It has nothing to do with you. I'm just saying. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
I mean, I've done it both ways where the roads are going to stay private, but this one here, I really wanted to build a new neighborhood, a neighborhood in Laconia, not some of the other ones that have fees for this, that, sneezing, scratching your head, everything.
No.
Fees. This is a neighborhood. It's a new neighborhood. It's kind of exciting, and it's what I wanted to do. And eventually, it's going to fly, and it's going to be part of the city road system, and so forth and so on. That's why we're spending ridiculous amounts of money to build the roads, put the water in, put the sewer in, and do everything we need to do.
One last question, if I could, Mr. Chair. The medium price of these lots or homes, is it going to be something that you could say would be for middle-class families, high-end families, low-income families?
Well, the best way of answering that is when I had the 77 lots, it was my really huge desire to make it a moderate income neighborhood. Obviously, when you lose 26 or half of your lots in Laconia, can't do it. Can't do it because of the cost of the road stays just the same. So the only way you can make money is you have to have a higher end of stock. And that's really the best way to explain it. I do want you to know, saying that, if you look at the plan, there's like 1/2 acre lots, 3/4 acre lots, and then there's 80 by 100 foot lots. And what I wanted to do is hit different price points so that I would have more options for people. So you don't have to have a real expensive house. Hopefully, we'll have some that are around 400,000.
It chokes me, but okay. I don't know the market out there at all. So,
Well, I'm the market out there is crazy right now.
yeah.
There's no supply.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you're welcome. As you can see, Gulliver wanted to be on television. That's his big goal in life. Says Gulliver, everybody. Okay, so we have to do a public hearing. Do you mind? At 7:51 p.m., I will open the public hearing. Are there any abutters here or waiting online that wish to be heard? Anyone there, Robert?
At this point, there is nobody logged into the Zoom app to speak for or against the application, and there is nobody in City Hall present to speak either.
Okay. So going once, going twice. Where do you, Cat? All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 7:51. What a coincidence. Okay, staff review, please.
So as Phil mentioned, we're not ready to make a true recommendation, and he's not looking for one. And so we're collectively asking the board to table the application to the February 2nd meeting, where you would have a continuation of the public hearing. And perhaps we will be ready for a final approval, perhaps not. So we'll see how that goes. If I could, I would like to take just a brief moment and kind of address Mr. St. Clair's comments. I truly understand the desire of people in the community to have affordable housing, and that means different things to different people. And it's kind of a hard thing to define. I will say that these are market rate houses. They're not subsidized or any of those terms that people may use. There is a market in the community for, whether you want to use the term upper middle class or something like that, in the community that is not aimed at seasonal. This is not to say that some of these houses won't be owned by people who are using them as seasonal houses, but they're in conversations with Mr. Brulliard. That's not the intention, that this is to be year-round residents for the most part. Not that we can control that, but that's the plan and that's the intention, as opposed to other well-known neighborhoods in the community where the emphasis is second home type situation. So there definitely is a need for this. I can tell you right now that new construction, not including land, not including utilities in the road and those kinds of things and engineering costs, new construction is a minimum of $150 a square foot, if not more, depending upon what kind of house you're building and what kind of features it has. But I mean, when you do the simple math of a 2,000 square foot house, $150 a square foot, you're looking at $300,000 just in construction costs of the house. And again, that doesn't include land, doesn't include pavement for the driveway, landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bit of a sticker shock to people of a certain age like me and others, of course, but
Careful.
I'm just saying, like me, that, we bought our first house for, $56,000 or something. And when we hear our kids are buying a house for $400,000, we go, the heart starts doing this. But, everything's relative. And I know it's a little hard to swallow sometimes and say, my God, 400,000 is considered middle class housing now. Unfortunately, we're to that point where, yeah, that's the answer. And you can't build, the cost of materials are the cost of materials, and the only way you can reduce the cost is reduce the square footage. And there's a lot of people out there that don't want to live in. I know everybody's heard the story of when I was a kid. I lived in a 1,000 square foot ranch with 6 other people. So, I don't know too many people that want to do that these days. So they want more square footage, and they have smaller families. So, you're gonna pay for it. That's the way it is. So I get the desire for middle class housing, and to some degree that will meet this need, but obviously not all of them. And I don't want to be misrepresenting the applicant.
No, the only thing that I may say to Charlie's point is I'm hoping that there's some people from Laconia that maybe might move up into this subdivision. Now, they may want to move up because the wife wants her dream kitchen, or they're retiring, or they want a new house as opposed to the house they have. Now, that might actually create more stock because they'll be selling their home, which might be a more modest, affordable home, in order to get their new home. So there will be a trickle, there will be an effect, I think a positive effect in terms of creating more inventory, because if they decide to move up the hill, then their house is going to be available and they're going to want to sell that to somebody. And that might be how we get some more affordable housing out of that,
If I'm not mistaken, right now, there's a shortage in every price range in the city of Laconia.
There's a shortage of
So-
every price range. There's a shortage of inventory that's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. In fact, it's having an impact on the realtors, and it's having an impact on the mortgage brokers, and it's having an impact on anybody related to real estate, because these folks have nothing to sell. They have no product to sell their customers. They have customers up the kazoo, but they have no product.
Well, I think that's a fair statement. Any other questions or comments at this point?
I'll thank you for your time and attention. And John, can you think of anything that we should say that we didn't?
No, I think we got it covered for right now. What we're trying to do right now, like I've been working on plans. I'm turning in some, hopefully more final plans for the TRC review and the third party review tomorrow. And we're about ready to make the alteration of terrain application. Like Phil said, we already have the wetland permit. We had to do a sewer application. So there's some things that we've been doing in the background that's kind of the reason why we want to make sure all those things are signed off on and finalized before you guys go to any final vote. So that's why we're asking for the continuance.
Well, I'm sure the board is confident in the partnership between Attorney Brouillard and yourself on this, both very professional and experienced in the development world. So thank you for your time. Are there any other questions or comments for the applicant or for staff regarding this matter? If not, I think we need a motion to table. Table the application to the March 2nd.
February 2nd. Yeah.
February 2nd, sorry. Groundhog Day. Someone please put Groundhog Day in the motion.
Motion to postpone to Groundhog Day,
Motion made by
2021.
Councilman Cheney.
2021.
2021. Maybe for the record, we should repeat that. No. Is there any discussion on the motion, which is duly made and seconded? Sensing none, could we have a roll call, please? Just once?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Delavecchio,
Favor the motion.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Beatty,
Yes.
Joel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries. Matter is tabled.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone,
Happy New
for the
Year.
presentation, and the
Very much.
bird's eye view was lovely. It's a little disconcerting if you don't know what the landmarks are, but it is amazing what we can do these days. All right, 9.2 is PL 2020-0116 SP and 0121 CUP offsite parking and 0122 CUP. It's dealership, it's Canton Chevrolet, 570 Union Avenue. Proposal to construct a 15,480 square foot paved parking lot for 40 vehicles with a 10-foot retaining wall and associated landscape and lighting. And they're requesting a waiver for street trees. We need to start with a motion to accept the application. The staff, is the application in order and ready for acceptance this evening?
Yes, it is.
All right. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the application.
I'll make a
I'll make a
motion to accept the application for 570 Union Avenue.
Who made that motion? I'm sorry.
Mike Delvecchio.
Okay, Mike, and a second?
Second.
Second by Chief Beatty. Any discussion? There's none. Roll call?
Bruce Jenny,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mike Delvecchio,
Stay for the motion.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Beatty,
Yes.
Joel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes, indeed. All right, then. The application has been accepted, and I'm told the applicant is present and would like to be heard at this time.
Good evening, members of the planning board. My name is Thomas Selling, engineer here in Laconia, New Hampshire. Also present with me is the owner, Mr. Tom Canton. So I'll make an initial presentation. If there's questions that need to be directed to Mr. Canton and I can't answer, you want to make a direct question to him, we're here to answer your concerns and questions. So just by way of quick summary, Mr. Canton set up an LLC. It's called LJC TEC. Purchased the property in October this past year. It's in the urban commercial zone. And a proposal is for upwards of 40 vehicles and what he's termed a new vehicle storage parking lot. And that is simply, as I understand, he's got inventory on the premises, as we all know, Canton Chevrolet. There may be a need where a customer wants a different color car. They've test drove a certain color, and they simply want another same vehicle, but a different color. That vehicle presumably would be available at this off-site parking lot. Employee would go down and get the vehicle, bring it back to the customer satisfaction. The deal could be made. So we're proposing a paved lot. This is 570 Union Ave. It's south of what we all know, we used to know was Sinel Auto, and it's now Domino Pizza. It's a vacant lot. It's a hole in the ground, if you will. It's gravel. The existing lot coverage is roughly 99%. So it essentially has, by your standards, not the most desirable situation. What we're proposing to do is a paved parking lot, as I mentioned, with a primary and secondary underground detention, retention, stormwater collection treatment system. It's a big fancy word for basically stormwater leach field. There was a concern raised a couple of weeks ago by the Bureau of Railroads, whereby they did not want any discharge to their right-of-way. We initially had a single underground storage system with 2 emergency overflow outlets through a retaining wall along the railroad right-of-way. They simply asked that not have any discharge there. So we've accommodated them with a primary system and a backup or an emergency overflow situation so that all be drained within the site. And during the TRC review comment, Krista read a comment from Luke Powell that he had actually done some testing and observed that the gravelly soil there was very conducive to the plan that ultimately I was gleaned to be the appropriate design for the site. So it was all sort of worked hand in hand. The other alternative, and Mr. Kent didn't want to be the first person to cut into beautiful brand new Union Road, but there was a catch basin about 200 feet to our north on the far side of Domino's Pizza. It simply would be cost prohibitive and just not the politically correct thing to do by cutting into Union Ave. So our alternatives and options were somewhat limited, and so we came up with this solution. The perimeter of the site will be surrounded by 4-foot high chain link fence on the sides, and in the back, on top of the retaining wall, would be a 6-foot high chain link fence. We're asking for a waiver tonight for street trees consistent with what Canton's has done throughout their property. Trees have leaves, obviously, that it's very acidic and it's not conducive to the well care, the maintenance and the well-being of the paint surface. And this was further backed up, and in your packets, I've provided copies of a Consumer Reports story that came out just back in November this past fall, making the same claim that no one should be parking under trees if they have a new vehicle. It's just not the right thing to do for the new paints. So with that, I'll open up the questions or comments. We can go into the merits if you would like me to go through the individual test criteria for the street tree waiver. It's in your packet, the explanation and the application materials, I think, is self-explanatory. Likewise, the conditional use permit for this alternative parking, you have a requirement under the CUP program that application also be made, and justification for this parking related to his primary business, but located off premise, be explained. And I think we've done that.
Tom, talk to me about the curb cuts.
Yeah, oh, good question. In the course of reviewing the site, there were, I believe Kevin Morris said, and his brother owned the property before Mr. Canton. On the south end of the property, there's an existing 28-foot curb cut. On the north side, closest to Domino's, there's a 41-foot curb cut. Again, because Mr. Canton didn't want to be the guy that broke into Union Ave, he cut the pavement, not to mention there's a whole bunch of added fees that now the city could theoretically impose on him. What we chose to do is keep the existing curb cuts as is, so there'd be no disturbance to Union Ave from a paving standpoint. There'll be some temporary interruptions during construction, with trucks and vehicles moving in and out. So we've closed off the south entrance, if you will. Again, from a practical standpoint, if Mr. Canton's able better to control the movement on the lot. Again, customers are not going to this lot. The idea is it's new vehicle display. They'll be lined up in similar fashion to what he does on the used car lot just north of this location on the other side of Domino's. And also, by closing up this curb cut, it's makes it safer because of the intersection that's where the Irving gas station is. We tried to get the drive that much further away from that situation. So there's no disturbance to the curb cut other than closing up the one to the south. And what he's proposing is a landscaped island with granite curbing. And then underneath that will be these underground retention chambers surrounded. So that answers that question. I was going to go in. No. Any other questions along the curb cut?
Will the Canton's employees be using the existing sidewalk, which is north and off this plan?
Yeah, there's an existing sidewalk. It is shown in front of Domino's. So they have,
And
a cross, a lighted
I meant a
crosswalk now
crosswalk, yeah.
to
Yeah.
come from the dealership, if you will, over to the used car lot and then proceed a few hundred feet southerly along the existing sidewalk to this lot.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative? Good to see you again, Mr. Canton.
Thank you. Nice seeing you.
All right. Well, no questions then. I guess we will open the public hearing at 8:10 p.m. Are there any abutters present or waiting online that would like to be heard regarding this application? Rob, is there anyone in the room?
Mr. Chair, there is nobody in the room and there is nobody logged into the Zoom app at all.
Okay. All right, then. It appears that we do not have any members of the public or abutters that wish to be heard on this matter. So I'll close the public hearing at 8:11 p.m. And let's hear from the staff.
You have our staff recommendation. I want to point out to the board that you need to take 2 votes, one for the waiver request for the street trees and the other for the various site plan and CUP applications. You have information on the waiver for the street trees. This was something that we worked with the applicant on this. They didn't want to have trees for the reasons that they stated. But there will be vegetation in their landscaped island that's between the sidewalk and their display parking. So there'll be like some low-lying bushes and those kinds of things. So there will be vegetation. It just won't be, grass and barren. So I just want to point that out to the board. I do want, in the site plan recommendations, there are some requirements from Laconia Waterworks. Nothing unusual, but this will be part of the thing that we will take care of during the building permit process and et cetera. And other than that, there's really nothing unusual in terms of requirements on this application. But again, it's 2 votes, one for the waiver and one for the rest of the applications.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there, what are folks going to see from the Wild Trail? Just what's the retaining wall going to be built out of?
Great question. What we're going to do is we're going to replicate in identical fashion the same block. It's manufactured right here at Gilbert Block. The concrete block wall that you see from the Wild Trail, you see along the back side of Domino's Pizza, it'll be identical. So we're being consistent, aesthetically, if you will, along there.
Okay. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add, I did mention in my initial presentation, we've also sought a shoreline permit. As funny as it may sound, the property is about 150 feet from Lake Opeechee. And as such, it's within the 250-foot setback. At a considerable expense by Mr. Canton, we've made application. The permit has been deemed complete and it's pending. So I wanted to get that in. There'll be a motion tonight, presumably in Mr. Canton's favor, with one of the conditions being successful approval of a shoreline permit for permanent parking within 250 feet of Lake Opeechee.
That would be in the staff's recommendation, I think, isn't it?
In the staff?
Or do we need to add that, Dean?
I'm looking. I think we need to add that. I
Okay.
just want to double check. Hang on. If you look under number 2(1)(e), all applicable federal and state permits shall be in place before work starts.
Okay.
And recording. So we've got it covered. But thank you, Mr. Snelling, for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I've got a question. It's a real benign question. Once you guys start working on this, when do you think you'll be done, ready to start parking new cars there?
As soon as the asphalt's cured, we're gonna park on it. But, yeah, the answer is I don't know. I don't know when the, weather's gonna permit for the wall to be constructed or built to be brought in. It's gonna take a sizable amount of fill. And right now, because of COVID, I don't have all kinds of extra cars parked down there anyway, so I'm not really clamoring right now. That will change.
So you're gonna have to bring in a lot of fill?
A lot of fill. It's a big hole right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a building not too long
Yeah,
ago.
it was a beautiful gravel site, and the previous owners decided they were thinking about doing a lower basement section for storage, presumably for stores. It didn't happen, so we're left with a hole in the ground.
Yeah. So
You file a writ of replevin and have.
Specifically, no, but as soon as we can start breaking ground, we're going to. Assuming we have approval tonight, we're going to start lining up contractors and getting bids and see who's going to do the work for us.
A lot of doings in Lakeport. All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Selling, Mr. Canton, members of the board. What is the board's pleasure regarding this matter?
Could I just ask, would you plan on having a building ever in that place?
No.
No.
We're not going to have a building. We're not going to have a sign where we'll have an American flagpole with green grass and cars. We're not going to
Nope.
stripe the asphalt. It's
No porta potties.
no porta johns.
Porta potties.
We're gonna have a fence. We will have some kind of a small box type container to hold controls for irrigation to keep the lawn watered, to control the lights, control a camera system, so we can monitor for security reasons the cars and inventory.
And no signage on this lot, right?
No signage. No.
Okay.
The only signage that will be just the license plates in the front of the cars. It'll be obvious whose lot it is, but we don't need a sign. I have enough signs.
You guys don't do the open the hood thing anymore.
Yeah, no, we're
letters.
not doing the open hood thing. I'm
That
trying
was
not
nice.
to be such a car dealer,
Oh my gosh. Like you haven't been a car
I'm not
dealer
even
for
wearing a
over
tie
100.
anymore. I'm not wearing my
over
white,
100 years,
plaid
right.
tie.
Yeah.
It only has a plaid tie on, right? Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on this? Then would someone care to make a motion?
I have a question for Dean.
Oh, someone has a question.
Yes, Mike Vecchia.
Can you unmute yourself, sir, please?
Reclaim yourself.
You look like me trying to struggle to get this thing turned
Thank
on.
you.
There you go. Thank you.
Dean, is there ordinance call for trees for the development of the lot?
Under our site plan regulations, we have a regulation for street trees, one on an average of every 50 feet. Some applicants will choose to put a couple together and then go a little bit longer distance, but it's an average of 50 feet. In this case, I forget what the frontage here is, but it would be 2 or 3 street trees, and as stated, it would be, right next to the cars. So it didn't make sense. In our case, we're looking for a series of bushes that would be closer to the street or in between the streets and the cars.
I'm just thinking that, this is our one chance to add some beauty to Union Avenue. I sure could use it. A couple trees, I think, are beneficial to the area. Just my feelings on it.
I think that part of the comment I would make is that many of our street trees don't survive. And I'm not sure why. Is it because they're surrounded by asphalt and they're
Salt.
It's a combination of things. We've also been in a drought off and on for the last 7 years. And that's not helping any trees me personally as well, I've got a dead tree I've got to deal with this year too. It just succumbed.
Salt,
street.
salt, Mr.
is a
Chair.
bad thing, too.
Salt.
Mr. Chair, if I could just throw this out.
Of course you can, Representative.
I was curious what street trees were, but now I understand.
Trees on the street, Charlie, that's it.
Yeah, well,
In the hood, man.
Mr. Chair, we haven't had any real street trees around
Yes,
here since Dutch
Representative.
elm.
Yeah.
For the most part. And I look at the trees on Main Street, which eventually get to a certain height and then they're cut down for whatever reason. So I think we could work as a city on some of the streets that we could put some trees on that don't have to be cut down, or it could be protected by salt or something. But I certainly think the applicant deserves a waiver for what he's doing there, and I'm sure they can come up with some bushes that'll look fine. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Maybe we have in the past talked about, like on sidewalk waivers, the possibility of requiring an applicant to build something somewhere else. No?
Trees?
Mhm.
Well, anything's
Any
supposed to
place
come up
that a
with
tree
roads.
needs to be replaced? I don't know.
It's not gonna be
Just throwing it
cut
out
down
there.
in 5 years.
There were no trees when the building was there, and I mean, I understand the sentiment about the trees, and yes, we probably should look at where we could add some trees intelligently, but I'm not sure that this location is that location. You know, they grow roots, they uproot asphalt, and salt is a big issue, and you know, and the size of them. You're right, to downtown they get to a certain size, and then they start covering stuff. And I guess the answer, it's not my decision, but I guess the answer is cut it down and plant a smaller one so that you don't create the long-term problems. But
Arboreal pursuits within an urban area are always fraught with peril. Look at our wonderful river walk behind City Hall that is all tore up from tree roots and needs to be replaced. It's like everything else that we do. It's a balancing act between people's ambitions and the realities that we have to deal with. But I agree with Representative St. Clair. I think that this one is worthy of a waiver, considering the use to which it's to be put. So, anyone else wish to be heard? Okay. I'm still fishing for a motion out there. Let me see if I can.
So I have to grant a motion first for the waiver and then the application? Okay.
Yes.
So I will make a motion to grant the waiver for the trees. And
Is
then
there a
can I make
second?
motion right after, or, okay.
Seconded by Representative St. Clair.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I'll make a motion to approve application PL 20200116 SP -0121 CUP for offsite parking, 0122 CUP for the dealership, 570 Union Ave for Canton Chevrolet for 40 parking spaces.
I'll second that too.
With the staff
With
recommendations.
staff recommendations.
I'll
Okay.
second that too.
All right. So we have two motions. I think we need to do two roll calls, right? Just for the record.
yes,
So could we have a roll call on the motion to waive street trees, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Delavecchia,
No.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Joel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett,
Yes. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we have the motion to approve the application.
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchio,
I agree.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Joel Fox,
Yes.
Edwin Bonas,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Thank you, Cleena. The motion passes then. Good luck and looking forward to seeing it.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have nothing on number 10, number 11, any new business? All right.
I just want to make a statement. Is this the time to make it or comments after?
It is up to you.
Okay.
You have new business to bring before the board. You go right ahead.
Maybe it's old business. I'll wait for old business. Do we have old business?
It's right after new business, Charlie, so just go.
Okay. Some of you may have noticed that they've started work up there at the Old Barton's Motel. I can say the Old Barton's Motel lot now. And I just want to go back in time when we had an applicant in here, and forgive me because I don't remember the address but it was property where some of the neighbors were unhappy about some work that was being done on the property. And I remember that there was a statement made that some of the trees were, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dean, but some of the trees from along the property line between John's Corvettes and Barnes Motel were going to be removed and brought to the property up there to help with the aesthetics, the trees, blocking what was going to be done on that property. But anyway, in any event, that was not done, and I've been waiting for those trees to be removed to be brought to that other location, and well, that's not happening because those trees are being all chopped up, and the ones that are along the John's Corvettes there are being destroyed quite well. So that's just a statement I want to make. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that previous applicant got back to Dean and said, geez, we wanted to do that. We told everybody we were going to do that. But in fact, we couldn't do it or something. That's all. I don't know, Dean, if you heard anything from those people on that. I just felt bad.
Charlie, I think it's appropriate to put this up as new business.
Something that was going to be done.
We have not heard from that applicant that was going to take the trees, but I will go out and check their property, or someone in my staff will check the property. We'll flip a coin and see who gets to go. And
you have a volunteer.
If there aren't any additional trees out there, then we'll make contact to find out what the future plan really is.
Well, I bring this up because the gentleman to my right here has brought up, well, that would be you, Councilor Cheney, has brought up other people that have come before the planning board and said they were going to do something and then in fact didn't do it. So that was all, but I'm just bringing it up. Thank you.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, it's unfortunate that the rest of you can't see the tie that Charlie's wearing, but no one can take seriously a person that would wear that tie. So whatever he said, just forget it.
Hopefully the person that bought this for me as a Christmas gift will not hear the councilor's comments. Thank you. Nice tie.
They don't like you. That's why they bought it.
Wow.
No,
Okay,
I don't think they were used. I think they were white cedar. So, okay. So sorry about that. Is there any old business, monkey business, any further business? All right. Could we have the Lakes Region Planning Commission report? Is there one this month?
There's not one this month.
All right. How about conservation? Stacy, were you at that meeting?
I was, and I guess I'm not certain what is relevant for the planning board. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I mean, Counselor Cheney gave a wonderful talk on the Pearly Pond. And there was a lot of talk about tonight's meeting, but I'm not, there was nothing really relevant for the planning board, I guess.
Okay.
But definitely, Dean, if you could fill in if I missed anything, but
Oh, is Dean here? Oh, I thought you meant Dean Anson.
no, Trefethan.
Ah, was there anything, Mr.
No.
Johnson? No? Okay. Well, thank you for that report. How about the council? What's up with the council, Councilman?
There's nothing I'm aware of that pertains to the planning board. And getting to the Pearly Pond, I think we should all take a ride by there and enjoy the scene. Thank you.
Well, we can.
It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
What do you mean enjoy the scene? There's a sense of impending doom to this
Oh,
pronouncement.
I don't intend that. We differ somewhat on how it should appear. And I think the Conservation Commission made it plain that they would like to see some plants besides just grass. My recollection of 50 years is it was mowed like a lawn, and that beautiful old tree was the backdrop for a lot of pictures that have been taken over the years. But the Conservation Commission suggested that other plantings should be included. I don't object to that. I am worried about the tree. The city's doing everything it can to try and save it, but it's pretty old.
Well, there is a pond there, so obviously there's wetland. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's like the old man of the mountains. Everything has an expiration date.
You know, I don't say this many places. I was the legislative chairman for the police chiefs, and I attended hearings in Concord and recall a discussion about the family that did the maintenance work on the old man, asking for money for silicone and can't remember what all. And one of the members of the committee said, those damn rocks have been there for thousands of years. Why are we spending money to take care of something that's just natural and been there and hasn't had a problem? And 2 years later, they fell. So there's something to be said for trying to take care of things like the old man in the mountain and Pearly Pond.
Well, I think Laconia has done a pretty good job. And
I would agree.
We went to extraordinary lengths to save the horse chestnut in Lakeport Square, you may recall.
Yes.
So, which was my favorite tree as a boy, because I was a Ward 6 kind of guy, not a Ward 1, you see. It was a Lakeporter. Yeah. All right. Historic District Commission. Do we have a liaison for this Historic District Commission? We don't, do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do.
Yes, we do. That would be me. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask Dean when we're going to make a presentation to the planning board of an extension, recommended extension of the historical overlay in downtown Laconia district. Thank you. So that's what we've been working on, and I think we're aiming for February, Dean.
All right. But it could be as early as that it'll be to start the process with the planning board. Yep.
Do we have any kind of a reliable estimate as to when the work on the Colonial will terminate?
The last I heard, and Dean can correct me on this, I think they were looking at April.
If you're talking about the theater itself, I think March or April is the time frame that it's going to be done. And that was not an echo, that was me saying done several times. The front part where the condos are going to be will be much, much longer than that. But the theater itself,
The exterior and the theater itself will be in workable shape by, say, May?
the facade along Main Street and part of Canal will probably be longer than May because it's associated with the storefronts and the condominiums.
Sure.
But the part of the theater that has their backstage stuff that's out along Canal, that should be done when the inside is done.
Do they have tenants for the storefronts? Other
I
tenants?
think so.
don't know.
No.
You don't think so? Okay.
No.
Well, keep us posted on that. That's big news, and that's something we need to look forward to happening. And it seems particularly odd to me that we a year ago had virtually no public venues for performances other than, say, Pittman's and school auditoriums, and now suddenly we're looking at 700 seats downtown, right? The Colonial, 200 or so in Lakeport, and I'm hearing that Chaos and Kindness intends to use the former Holy Grail as a performance venue that will seat some 300. So we have suddenly an abundance of an asset, and we should be prepared to encourage its use so it does not wither and die like a street tree somewhere. And that's my editorialization for the night. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed.
Ed Bonet was supposed to do a sidewalk study or proposal for new construction on sidewalk waiver. Did you come up with anything, Eddie?
Was that a question?
I had a brief discussion with the gentleman from Public Works. I got to get together with Dean and do some further discussions. So the answer right now is no.
So in case you haven't been in Lakeport Square recently, the demolition has indeed begun on that block, that first block of Elm Street. They started with 9 Park, the former Roby Mansion, the other day. I think they started at 7, and by 8 the garage was gone, and half the building was gone, or more than half the building by the end of the day. So there's a big pile of rubble where those buildings used to be. And it seems to be moving on time. I'm also under the impression that as soon as the contractor gets done there, they're going to head to Barton's. So it's a busy season in the demo business. Those people you were wondering last year what to invest in. It was demolition. Who knew? Oh, well. Okay. Is there any other business to come before the board? Sensing none, then the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. I would say.
So moved.
Motion
So
made,
moved, too.
seconded. Are there any objections? No, motion passes. Thank you very much. We are adjourned until next month. And thank you for your patience at the get-go. I couldn't even begin to explain what happened.
Thank you.
I would like my tie.